This is a wedding that has been planned for a long time. A handsome groom married a fat, ugly bride, because the bride, Fendi, comes from a family of medicine and has a lot of money. On the wedding day, her mother-in-law, Lucy, stole $10,000 from their red envelopes. After the wedding, she wanted to share the money with the man. The whole wedding was organized by the woman. Of course, she kept the money as startup capital for the new family. But this little money kept Lucy awake at night. She secretly followed her in-laws to the warehouse and photographed the safe combination with her cell phone. Her son, Jack, is just as scheming as his mother. On the surface, he was very affectionate to Fendi. Inside, he hated Fendi's ugliness. Late at night, Jack did not know where to go. Fendi searched for him for a long time before she found him in the kitchen cooking. But this is not for Fendi, because there was another woman hiding in the kitchen. Her name was Nisa. She was Fendi's maid, and Jack's girlfriend of 5 years. Jealous that Fendi looks like a pig but has a lot of money, so she joined hands with Jack to create a chance encounter. Fendi, an inexperienced girl, instantly fell in love with Jack, a man with a sunny smile. Jack then launched a fierce pursuit of Fendi. Fendi fell deeply in love with Jack. Soon after they got married, mother and son were plotting how much the herbs in the storehouse were worth, how to empty Fendi's house. In order to find out her family's wealth, Lucy deliberately spilled water into the warehouse. Luckily, the herbs in the warehouse have been well protected. Looking at the ginseng, antlers and other expensive herbs in front of her, the greedy woman's eyes were wide open. The next step is to get the key to the warehouse. This is the most crucial step. It must be handled by a reliable person, Nisa, the mastermind behind the fraudulent marriage. But their affair was soon discovered. One day, Fendi's best friend Jedel came to her house. She accidentally found Jack and Nisa hugging each other. After being discovered, Nisa lied that Jack was about to fall. She was just helping him. But such a poor excuse, Fendi believed it. Jedel in her torn whether to tell her husband cheating Fendi thing. That day, Lucy couldn't help herself and went to the casino to spend money. But she lost everything in no time. She told the casino staff to borrow $100,000. But the casino owner gave her $500,000. As expected, she lost all the money in no time. If she doesn't pay back the money tonight, she end up like the people on the floor. Lucy desperately dialed her son's number. Jack is cheating on her with Nisa. He had no choice but to ask his daughter-in-law Fendi for help. The daughter-in-law quickly gathered $500,000, but the boss wasn't interested in money at all. He fell in love with Fendi's family's valuable herbs. If Fendi is willing to sell, he's willing to pay $7 million. Otherwise, don't blame him for being merciless. At the critical moment, Jedel complimented the boss on his samurai spirit. He would never hurt a woman or an old man. Just as he's about to pull out his gown, he's held down by his woman. Is it because she's in love with Jedel? Anyway, they made it back without a hitch. But Lucy wanted to sell herbs. Fendi doesn't want to talk to her mother-in-law about it. But Lucy was pushing her hard. Jedel couldn't stand it. Fendi spent $500,000 to buy her out. She didn't say a word of thanks. These words pushed Lucy's buttons. She picked up a vase and wanted to throw it at Jedel. Luckily, Jedel dodged in time, but she almost fell down. Just then, her son Jack came back with Nisa. He blamed Fendi for not helping his mother-in-law for no reason, and demanded that Fendi apologize to his mother right away. But who knew that after apologizing, Fendi would also ask her mother-in-law to apologize to Jedel for calling Jedel an idiot. Mother and son were dumbfounded. Jedel didn't want to embarrass Fendi. In the end, the matter was left unresolved. At night, Fendi saw her husband looking suspicious. Then she grabbed his shirt, which she had just taken off, and noticed a strong smell of perfume. This made Fendi suspicious. It turned out that her husband not only cheated on her with Nisa behind her back, he was also using fake herbs instead of expensive ones. Fendi didn't even know it. One day she saved a beggar on the street. She asked the beggar to wait near her pharmacy. The beggar did not know Jack. He saw a man sneaking into the pharmacy. He thought there was a thief in the pharmacy and followed him quietly. At this time in the warehouse, 3 people are planning to sell the herbs. When he was about to tell, Fendi accidentally exposed his whereabouts. Jack saw a beggar, so he grabbed him and beat him up. At this time, his father-in-law and Fendi rushed over. A look at the warehouse door has been tampered with. Nisa but slander that the beggar did it. Not waiting for the beggar to refute, Jack went up and beat him again, and did not give him a chance to explain it. Fendi blocked the beggar successfully escape. Unfortunately, his father-in-law did not realize that the herbs had been switched. Just when these people thought that they could get away with it, the pharmacy apprentice, Han-gu, found Nisa and exposed her for selling herbs. It turns out that Han-gu noticed a small bag hidden behind Nisa's back. After comparing it, he realized that the wild ginseng in the pharmacy had been replaced by farmed ginseng. In order to prevent Han-gu from exposing her, Nisa first seduced him with her beauty. Then she promised Han-gu that she would help him to get the secret recipe of the medicine. Han-gu finally failed to resist the temptation and became Nisa's accomplice. On the other hand, Fendi believed that the beggar was wrongly accused. After learning the cause of the incident, Fendi's heart was clear. She was waiting for Nisa to reveal her weakness, but she suddenly realized that the perfume smell on Nisa is very familiar. Obviously, Aunt Jack's perfume smell is exactly the same. After a search, Fendi found a bottle of suspicious perfume in Nisa's room. Yes, this is the same smell. Suddenly a box fell from the cabinet. Fendi was shocked when she opened the box. This couple had been together for 5 years without her knowledge. That means her marriage was a complete conspiracy. Luckily, Fendi didn't lose her head. For the unfaithful man, she would drive him out of her life with her own hands. That day, Fendi saw her husband flirting with Nisa again. She was very angry. In order to teach these two men a lesson, Fendi lied that she was taking her father on a trip. While the master was away, Nisa and Jack sold all the valuable herbs in the warehouse to the gangsters. However, on the day of collection, Jack was beaten up by the boss. The reason was that the ginseng they sent was not real ginseng. This batch of fake goods made the boss lose a lot of money. He warned them that if they didn't deliver the real thing soon, he wouldn't let them go. Nisa didn't know what the problem was. When they rushed back to the warehouse was empty, but on the shelves were intimate photos of her and Jack. As expected, this was all Fendi's plan. And with the evidence, Nisa didn't want to pretend anymore. She's been working as a maid in Fendi's house for years and she's had enough of her. Fendi ordered them to leave the house immediately or the police would be called. Jack refused to leave. If he doesn't get the herbs, the mobsters will kill him. He rushed to grab his mother-in-law's phone. The room was in chaos. Finally, Jack took out a pistol and ordered his mother-in-law to hang up the phone. If Fendi doesn't tell us where the herbs are hidden, no one can leave this room today. The two sides were at a stalemate. Mother-in-law seized the opportunity to grab Jack's pistol. Several people once again into a melee. Only heard a bang. Mother-in-law was shot in the abdomen and fell to the ground. Jack was stunned by the sight of a human life. Unexpectedly, Nisa picked up the pistol and took the initiative again. At the same time, the apprentice Hangu rushed back to the drugstore. The master told him to call the police, but Hangu has been bribed by Nisa, so he didn't hesitate to grab a jade pendant and smashed it on his master's head. In order to take over the master's property, Nisa, the maid, raised her pistol and prepared to kill the master's family. The beggar who tried to escape was caught in an instant. He lost his right eye when he hit his head on the glass cabinet. Suddenly, there was a sharp knock on the door. Fendi screamed for help, but her husband Jack covered her mouth tightly. Opened the door to see. It turned out to be a gangster. Boss did not expect Jack to be more ruthless than himself. He only asked Jack to get the herbs, but not to kill anyone. In order to avoid irresponsibility, Nisa promised not to charge any money for the herbs this time. Just ask the boss to help them through this difficult time. Big Brother was quick to help them get through to the higher-ups. The commissioner of police gave them an idea. First, kill Fendi's mother by her own hand. Then they dug a hole in the field and buried the remaining 3. Just as Nisa was about to shoot, a caravan passed by in the distance. They had to bury them in a hurry to avoid any trouble. When they got home, they called the police and lied to get them to take the dead away because the mob bosses had made prior arrangements, so they were acquitted as soon as the statement was taken. On the other hand, Jedel, who was working in South Korea, had a white jade shattered. This piece of jade was given to him by Fendi when he left Thailand. He had a bad feeling about it, so he called Fendi immediately, but there was no answer on the other end. The next day, he learned about Fendi on TV. The police reported that Fendi had killed a man in a drugstore over a money dispute and had fled the country. Jedel wanted to go back to Thailand to find out the truth, but he was too poor to pay his way back. Just when Jack and the others thought they had done a good job this time, Big Brother told them that the body in the field was missing. It turns out that Fendi was not dead at that time. After escaping, she ran to her uncle's house to ask for help. With the help of her uncle, the 3 took a freighter and rolled to a foreign country, learned that the buried 3 people disappeared. The boss and the police found 2 scapegoats and faked their deaths as suspects who died in a car accident while fleeing from the police. And so the drugstore murder case was closed, and Jack succeeded in inheriting Fendi's estate and marrying Nisa. On the other hand, Fendi is abroad exercising and dieting every day, and studied acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Even the beggar also changed his face and practiced martial arts to enrich himself. 5 years later, the trio returned to the country again. Fendi changed her name to Nico and opened an acupuncture clinic. The name Chong Sheng means rebirth. Seeing her former enemy living in her house and showing off his power, Nico vowed to take back everything that was hers. The first to take the bait was Lucy. She's a woman who loves a bargain. When she heard about the free gifts at the newly opened acupuncture store, she rushed over with her little niece. Most importantly, she didn't recognize the pretty lady boss as Fendi. When she heard about the free acupuncture and ginseng, Lucy was immediately impressed. After a few needles, Lucy quickly fell asleep. When she woke up, she felt so relieved. She even praised Nico for his skill. Unbeknownst to her, Nico had already tampered with her body without her realizing it. This woman already has cerebrovascular problems. A cerebral hemorrhage is just a matter of time. Nico's acupuncture will cause her to eat and sleep too much, and over time her blood pressure will rise and cause her blood vessels to burst. When that happens, it won't be Nico's fault. As expected, Lucy introduced Nico to her son Jack. Jack saw that this woman is very beautiful. He quickly found her social media account through the information on the flyer. Jack was attracted to Nico's sexy body. After 5 years of marriage, he had lost his passion for his wife. At the moment, he was fantasizing about having an affair with Nico. Soon the opportunity came. Lucy and Nisa had a big fight over something trivial. She was upset and decided to take her son to acupuncture. Unsurprisingly, Jack fell in love with Nico at first sight. Nico said Jack looked bad and wanted to check him out. That's exactly what Jack wanted. Nico's eyes are narrow in seduction. The next step was a deeper examination. Nico asked him to undo one more button. Jack smiled but did not say anything. Looks like he's got the hots for this one. Nico massages his back. It gave Jack a sensation he'd never felt before. Finally, Nico said he needed acupuncture for office syndrome. Jack couldn't wait. Suddenly, Nisa called and asked what he was doing. Nico could tell he was busy, so she made a promise to do the acupuncture next time. On the other hand, Nico is still obsessed with her childhood noodle dish. She ordered a bowl of noodles and a bowl of vermicelli, and then she mixed the noodles with the noodles. This way of eating caught the attention of the owner. Jedel. Fendi used to love this way of eating. Unfortunately, Fendi is no longer with us. Since then, Nico came to Jedel's noodle store every now and then, sometimes to eat, and sometimes to see the old man. Over time, they got to know each other like old friends who hadn't seen each other for years. The more Jedel looked at Nico, the more he saw a resemblance between her and Fendi. When they passed an intersection, their feelings for each other rose again. At night, while her husband was asleep, Nisa used his fingerprints to unlock her cell phone. When she looked at the phone records, she saw something fishy. Nisa dialed the number without hesitation. Unsurprisingly, a young woman answered the phone, but before she could find out more, her husband caught her in the act. Jack warned her never to touch his cell phone again. The next day was Jack's rendezvous with Nico. He wanted to sneak out, but his mom stopped him and asked him where he was going. Nisa kept asking him questions. Jack had the bright idea to take his mom aside, said he was going to see Nico for acupuncture. In order to avoid Nisa's jealousy, he wanted his mom to cover for him. So Lucy was in the middle of her meal, yelling for Jack to go out and get her a drink. But as soon as he left, Nisa said she had to go out to talk to a client. As expected, she was secretly following Jack. When Mom saw this, she called Jack to report that Nisa is following him. Jack went to a corner and got on a motorcycle and ran. Nisa was in a hurry but could not do anything. Jack finally arrived at the destination. After all the obstacles, he was able to enjoy Nico's services. Nico gave him acupuncture. Jack is enjoying himself. But the strange thing is that after the acupuncture, Jack still felt uncomfortable. He asked Nico if there were any other treatments that could bring his body to its peak, and Nico was waiting for him to say that. On the other hand, Nisa accidentally found an acupuncture flyer on the wall. She vaguely remembers her mother-in-law going to this store. Did Jack go there too? She followed the address on the flyer and found the acupuncture parlor. Jack was enjoying himself. He didn't realize that his wife had already arrived. Looking at the ugly picture in the room, Nisa rushed into the room and asked what they were doing. Nico explained that he was just giving Jack acupuncture. Seeing Nisa still not let go, Nico had no choice but to kick them out. Back home, Jack took the mysterious pills that Nico prescribed for him, but soon his body immediately became hot. Looking at his wife's back, Jack couldn't wait to have sex with her. Nisa was not in the mood. She's still sulking about Jack's trip to the acupuncture parlor during the day. Jack had no choice but to take it out by exercising. He never realized that the reason why he was like this. The problem was the medicine Nico gave him. The medicine would expand his blood vessels and stimulate his nerves to make him want more. On that day, Jack went to pay protection money to his brother. His sister-in-law passed by him in a cool dress. Jack couldn't take his eyes off her, and she was holding a water pistol in front of him to show off. The scene was so erotic that it made Jack's blood run cold. He held back his desire to tell himself that this was his brother's place, but she took the initiative and threw the sponge on the floor and asked Jack to help her pick it up. In the face of the active sister-in-law, Jack was eager to do so. Just when the two were enjoying themselves, Big Brother came. After collecting protection money, Brother did not suspect the two. When he left, Jack did not forget to take a look at his wife. Not a moment later, sister-in-law even drove a car to give Jack a ride. Right after getting into the car, she was eager to help Jack fasten his seatbelt. Jack knew exactly what was going through her mind. Eventually the two arrived at the sister-in-law's villa. Jack could not help but have sex with his sister-in-law. When he got home, Nisa kept questioning him. Despite Jack's best efforts to hide it, Nisa could tell that he had just returned from an affair. It turned out that Jack had a woman's hair on his collar. Nisa was the first to think of Nico from the acupuncture store. While the two were arguing, the mother-in-law said the hair was her own. After being exposed by her daughter-in-law, she said it belonged to her niece. No matter what, she wouldn't admit that her son was cheating on her. Nisa wanted to make a scene. Suddenly, Lucy sat down on the sofa. She blamed it all on her daughter-in-law. She didn't realize that Nico had done something to her. Nico used the name of free acupuncture to deliberately make her appetite. Over time, Lucy developed high blood pressure from eating. Unaware of this, Lucy thought of Nico as a benefactor. She doesn't think there's a free lunch in the world. I heard her son Jack is having trouble with his daughter-in-law. Nico knew it was a fish out of water. To find out who the woman Jack was seeing was, Nico sent his assistant to follow her. Soon the assistant found out that the woman was the mobster's sister-in-law. Jack and his sister-in-law agreed to have a private meeting after Big Brother's business trip. At the end, she even sent Jack a selfie. Looking at the beautiful legs in the cell phone, Jack's heart could not hold back. Unbeknownst to him, the two of them have already fallen into Nico's trap. It turned out that Nico's assistant, posing as a maintenance man, had secretly installed a surveillance camera under the table. That day, Jack swallowed the pills early. Within 2 minutes his body reacted. Coincidentally, this day the big brother to go abroad on business trips. After sending off his brother, sister-in-law immediately sent a text message to Jack. Soon Jack arrived at the villa. Outside the villa, Nico and his assistant were quietly waiting for the show to begin. Not a moment later, Nico's computer received a surveillance image. On the sofa, the two are passionately entwined. Unfortunately, the camera couldn't see Jack's face. What's even worse, the water from the vase spilled all over the table. The water covered the camera completely. Suddenly Nico had an idea. She sent a video to Nisa from an unknown number. Looking at the man's flowery shirt, Nisa suddenly remembered that Jack had worn the same shirt when he left the house this morning. It was all very self-explanatory. She immediately followed the address and rushed there. At the same time, the mob boss received the same message. He was so angry that he couldn't even talk business and turned his car around. But it was Nisa who arrived first. The door was unlocked. The two of them in the room had just finished. Before they could react, Nisa rushed into the room and grabbed the woman and beat her up. Suddenly got the news that the black boss also returned at this time. If the boss finds out, the whole family will be in trouble. Nisa told her husband to run. She hid in the bathroom. When confronted by the boss, her wife denied it. Jack hid outside the window and didn't dare make a sound. It wasn't long before Nisa was caught. Facing the boss's questioning, Nisa lied that a man had just assaulted her. She came to deliver medicine to her sister-in-law and happened to see him, so she helped her to fight off the man. The boss didn't believe her, but she insisted that it was Nisa who saved her. Then she pretended to hug and cry. Jack thought he was out of danger. He just wanted to check the situation, but there was an accidental noise. The sound attracted the attention of the boss. He went to the window and there was no one outside, but he didn't know that Jack was hanging outside. With the passage of time, he finally lost his strength and fell down. The boss also found him. Finally, Jack fled to the backyard of a house. I thought the dogs in the yard did not find him, but outside the door, Nico's assistant suddenly threw a box into the yard. When the dog heard the noise, it immediately pounced on Jack. Jack was so scared that he fled over the wall. Not long after, the black boss's subordinates found the bloodstained rags on the ground. He rushed to report to the boss. In the end, his wife Nisa saved him. She did not care about accusing her husband of cheating. She had to take Jack to the hospital first. At that moment, his sister-in-law called and said she couldn't go to the hospital now. The boss has sent people to all the hospitals in front of the squatting to catch people who have been bitten by dogs. Nisa had no choice but to turn around and go home. When she found out that her son had slept with the boss's woman, she was in such a state. Her mother, Lucy, was furious. The black boss is not something they can offend. But no matter what, Jack's injuries must be treated. The best healer in the family is Hongu, but Hongu has no experience in treating rabies. Now he can't go to the hospital. He can only try. But Hongu's skills were not good enough. Jack's condition is getting worse and worse. Suddenly, Lucy thought of Nico. Nico came and said she could cure him. After drinking the Chinese medicine, Jack's pain was indeed alleviated. However, when Nico was leaving, he found Jack's clothes that had been bitten by a dog. What would happen if he sent it to the boss? But then her niece appeared and forced her to put down the clothes again. In order to save her ex-husband from a dog bite, Nico deliberately tampered with his medicine. On the surface, she controlled his condition, but as time went on, Jack became headache, nausea, coughing and vomiting blood. The most important thing is that she didn't sterilize Jack fairly. After 8 days, he would get worse due to infection. In the meantime, Nico had been looking for the dog's torn shirt. It was enough to make the boss kill him. Eventually, Nico found it in a garbage can. The boss was still in the dark. Suddenly a motorcyclist threw something into the house. He opened it and saw the dog's torn shirt. There was also a photo under the box. At a closer look, it was Jack. The boss was so angry that he grabbed the woman and went to Jack's house. He kicked Jack right at the door. Jack was beaten up like a dog by the boss and he was helpless. Not long after, Jack's family rushed over to stop it. In the heat of the moment, the boss slapped Nisa hard in the face. Things have come to this point. Today, someone must die in order to solve his heart hatred. Nisa quickly lied that Jack's injuries were not dog bites but hit by a car. But the boss didn't believe her. Nisa hurriedly found an identical dress. The one in her hand is Jack's. The one in the boss's hand is obviously someone's attempt to frame them. Now that Nisa has produced evidence, the boss can't say anything else. So where did this shirt come from? Mom saw this shirt on sale, so she bought many of the same shirt. But she saved Jack's life at the critical moment. Through a series of events, obviously someone in the dark deliberately set them up. However, after this incident, Jack still did not change his ways. He dresses himself up in a fancy way. All he could think about was the relationship between men and women. It turns out that during the day, Nico confessed to him. Jack was so excited that he was about to make out with her. Suddenly, Nico answered the phone and said she was busy. Before leaving, she also gave Jack a hotel room card and asked him to meet again tonight. Jack just wanted to make out with Nico at night, but Nico pushed him away, then took a bottle of essential oil said to give the two of them a boost. Jack picked up the bottle and inhaled a few puffs. It didn't take long for him to get aroused. Nico, on the other hand, was hiding and trying to play hard to get. She slowly pulled out a belt and said she wanted to do something exciting. Naturally, Jack was up for it. Then the assistant came into the room with another woman on his back. A closer look is actually the sister-in-law. It turns out that this is all a trap designed by Nico in advance. She first sent her assistant to seduce her sister-in-law. Then she set up a camera in the hotel room. Like last time, the assistant sent a location message to Boss Black. Boss Black immediately turned his car around. He arrived at the hotel in no time. Before Jack could understand what was going on, Boss Black and his men rushed in and beat him up. While Nico and his assistant were watching, Nisa and his men arrived. On the other hand, Jack was held at gunpoint by the boss, but he was so scared that he peed his pants. In order not to disturb the residents of the neighborhood, Black Boss sent people to bring them to the woods. Then he dug a big pit to bury them alive. Sister-in-law said she was forced by Jack in order to stay alive. Jack saw that this woman betrayed him, so he told her all the bad things she said about Boss Black. Boss Black killed the woman in a fit of rage. The next person to be shot was Jack, but Jack made a strange suggestion to the boss in order to survive. Since I slept with your wife, in exchange, you also slept with my wife. And his mother, Lucy, agreed with him. But the boss wasn't interested in Nisa. Since Jack is so sincere, I'd rather take advantage of his subordinate. He was about to strip Nisa of her clothes. At the critical moment, Han-gu stepped forward. He's always had a crush on Nisa. Now he is trying his best to protect her. Suddenly, Jack kicked away the gun held by the Black Boss. Then he escaped alone. Unfortunately, he was quickly blocked by his assistant. Assistant punched him in the head. Jack looked puzzled and didn't know what he had done to offend him. It turned out that the assistant lost his right eye because of Jack's fault. But years have passed. Jack has long forgotten. Assistant punch after punch on his right face finally helped Jack to recover his memory. Back then, he had buried Fendi alive. Since the assistant isn't dead, that means Fendi is still alive. So Nico is Fendi. Just when the assistant was about to kill Jack, suddenly, there was a gunshot in the distance. The assistant was wounded and escaped. On the other hand, Nisa took the opportunity to cut the rope with a stone. In the confusion, she picked up the gun and killed all the Black Bosses. In order not to be discovered, she and Han-gu carried all the corpses to the pit. On the other hand, the assistant who was wounded by the gun stumbled and fell on the row. He met Jedel by chance. He asked Jedel to take him to Nico. Although he didn't know what had happened, Jedel instinctively felt that something serious was going on. But strangely, Nico wouldn't let him call the police, and her attitude was so strong that she was a far cry from her usual gentle self. Soon after, Jack was also taken to the hospital. After a few resuscitations, he survived, but he was also at risk of going blind and spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. When he got home, Jedel thought more and more about what happened. He felt that something unknown had happened in the woods that night, so he rode his motorcycle to the woods. Sure enough, he found blood on a leaf. Just then a white SUV pulled into the woods. Nico was able to save the assistant's life. He came to the woods to make sure Jack was dead. Listening to him on the phone about the body, Jedal's heart was in his throat. Then he followed the assistant all the way to his uncle's house. He heard the two men talking about the body again. In order to find out, Jedal climbed over the fence into his uncle's yard. He didn't realize that Nico was also involved. On the other hand, Nisa wouldn't let Jack be treated in the hospital no matter what. Lucy did not want her son's condition to worsen, so she arranged for her niece to invite Nico over. Nico did not realize that Jack was still alive. I don't know if he's revealed his true identity yet. Anyway, she decided to go and take a look first, but Nisa was guarding her like a thief. She wouldn't let Nico in. In the end, Lucy forced her in, but Jack was like a ghost when he saw Nico. It's a pity he's a vegetable and can't speak. Otherwise he would have told his mom that Nico was behind all this. Nico is Fendi. Fendi came back to take revenge on them. Unknowingly, Lucy thought her son was excited to see Nico, so she was relieved to leave Jack in her hands, without the interference of outsiders. Nico first gave him a big mouth. Then she pinched Jack's mouth and poured him some kind of drug. This drug won't kill Jack, but it won't cure him either. In short, it would make his life worse than death. In the days that followed, Nisa couldn't have sex with her husband because he was a vegetable. She was very unhappy about it. All she could do was to take a cold shower to relieve her desire. At that moment, Hangu brought her medicine. Looking at his strong body, Nisa was soon attracted to him. At that moment, Jack was lying on the bed like an invalid. He watched his wife making out with another man. In order to prevent Jack from destroying the atmosphere, they simply tied him to a wheelchair and pushed him into the bathroom. The reason why Nisa's sex drive is so strong is because of Nico. During the day, Nico deliberately spilled Nisa's medicine. As an apology, Nico made her a new pot of tonic. The reason why she did this is to make this family more and more chaotic and eventually kill each other. On the other hand, the assistant searched the whole forest and finally found the bodies of Boss Black and his men. If we hand these bodies over to the police, Nisa's family will be in deep shit. In order for the police to find the murderer, Nico collected Hangu's sweat, Lucy's pearl earrings and Nisa's hair. Then she put them in the sacks with the corpses. That way, the police wouldn't have to worry about finding them. That night, Lucy suddenly heard a strange noise. It turned out that Nisa was cheating on Hangu again. Lucy searched for the sound and went there. The account book was thrown on the ground. Nisa and Hangu were caught by Lucy. Lucy asked them what they were doing. Nisa lied and said she was checking the books. Obviously, Nisa was lying. Lucy went to Nico and asked him to give her an idea. Nico told her to stay calm. We'll find out tonight. At night, Lucy said she had to go out for a while, and told Nisa to take good care of Jack. But as soon as Lucy left, Nisa showed her true colors. She brought the drugstore's real estate and land deeds and forced Jack to sign them. Jack vowed not to comply. Nisa directly slapped him. Finally, under the coercion of the two, Jack drew a pledge on it. Now the whole pharmacy is in Nisa's pocket. Next thing you know, she'd be kicking her loser husband and parasitic mother-in-law out of the house. To celebrate this hard-earned happiness, Nisa and Hangu were going to make out. It's so frustrating that Jack doesn't know what to do. By now, Lucy can't wait. Nico advised her to calm down and took out a sharp dagger from his bag so that Lucy could be prepared. When she got home, she found her vegetative son alone downstairs. Her daughter-in-law was having an affair with a drugstore employee. Furious, her mother-in-law rushed to kill them. Unfortunately, she was no match for her daughter-in-law in her old age. She was defeated in no time. She wanted to kick her daughter-in-law out of the house, but the daughter-in-law said, "Your son has transferred the property and the pharmacy into my name." The Hangu on the other side of the room also agreed. Looking at her vegetative son, Lucy had to bow her noble head and bow her hands to Nisa. On the other hand, Nico's father gradually regained his memory. In order to prevent him from destroying his revenge plan, Nico found someone to send him abroad, but he jumped out of the car and escaped. He vaguely remembers the address of his pharmacy. He took a break along the way. At that moment, his niece came out to walk Jack. The old man in front of him didn't seem to be feeling well. The niece went up to him and asked if he needed help. Sleepy-eyed Jack opened his eyes and saw if it was not his father-in-law. This old man has long been buried alive. Now that his father-in-law has survived, will he come to him for revenge? However, his father-in-law had only recovered a small part of his memory and did not remember who he was. Jack stammered out the word sorry, although he did not understand why Jack apologized to him. But my father-in-law thought that since he was repentant, it meant that Jack realized his mistake, and such a person can be forgiven. Jack's defenses were completely shattered at this moment. So many things have happened recently, that he has seen the coldness and warmth of the world. Then Nico's father returned to his ancestral home. After a 6-year absence, he found that the house had already been taken over by his enemies. Before he could reach the door, a high-speed truck came speeding towards him. In the heat of the moment, the driver reverses the steering wheel and hits a green belt. At the same time, a gas canister rolled down from the truck. The smoke from the tank quickly spread across the street. No one dared to take another step. Through the smoke, Nisa saw the man she had buried alive 6 years ago. But in the blink of an eye, the old man disappeared into thin air. No one knows where he went. Nisa suddenly remembered that Jack had said that Fendi had brought her father back before he became a vegetable. She asked Jack where Fendi was now, but Jack refused to tell her. Lucy now wants Fendi to come back and take revenge on them. Jack has become a vegetable anyway. There's nothing to lose. The people who are really scared are Nisa and Hangu. Nico wanted to find out if her father was hidden by Nisa. She pretended to come to the drugstore to deliver Jack's medicine. That her suspicious behavior caught Nisa's attention. She suspected that Nico and Fendi were inextricably linked. Suddenly, the TV broadcasted a news report that the police had found 4 bodies in the suburbs. One thing led to another. These 4 bodies were killed by Nisa. She was as anxious as an ant in a hot pot. Naturally, she had no time to think about who Nico really was. In order to absolve herself of responsibility, Nisa and Hangu went to the police station to find the chief of police. She wanted to blame Jack and Lucy for the murder. The police commissioner has received a lot of favors from Nisa over the years. Naturally, he was willing to take care of this for her. Unbeknownst to her, it was all a plot by Nico. She posed as the illegitimate daughter of a triad boss and gave a large sum of cash to the commissioner of police. All she needed was for the commissioner of police to cooperate with her to lure Nisa into the trap. If the commissioner can help Nisa for money, he can also help Nico for money. On the other hand, in order to cover up her murder charge, she forced her husband and mother-in-law to drink drugs to fake a traffic accident. She made her husband and mother-in-law her scapegoats. Unexpectedly, the police commissioner, who was working with her, betrayed her halfway and wanted to kill her as well. That way, no one would know about the chief's corruption and bribery. But Nisa was prepared. She hid a gun in the car. First, she killed the director's entourage. Before the director could react, Nisa and Hangu quickly took cover. At that moment, Lucy woke up. She saw Nisa hiding in front of the car like a rat. She picked up a wooden stick and hit Hangu on the head. Then she knocked Nisa's gun away. While they were grabbing the gun, the director was approaching them quietly, but Hangu came out from the middle of the road. After a struggle, the director shot him down. When it was Nisa's turn, she pushed her mother-in-law in front of her. After a few gunshots, Lucy was wounded and fell to the ground. This is exactly what Nico wanted to see. Bad guys should kill each other. Nisa tried to pick up the gun on the ground when the director wasn't looking. The director took the opportunity to shoot her in the right hand. Without thinking, Nisa quickly ran towards the back of the car. The director chased after her and grabbed her by the hair and threw her out. And this is just the right time for Nisa to pick up the pistol on the ground. Then she took the opportunity to sneak attack the director. During the process, Nisa also accidentally injured. Look at the enemies, one by one, lying on the ground to breathe a sigh of relief. Nico and his assistant came out from the shadows. She was ready to see them off, but the director didn't die. He aimed his gun at Nico with 2 gunshots, but it was the chief who fell. It turned out that police officer Peter had been following the murder case 6 years ago. When he learned that his uncle was behind the murder, Peter did not hesitate to stop him. Of course, Nico, the mastermind of all this, couldn't escape either. At that moment, Nisa, in the driver's seat, endured the pain and stepped on the gas. The car ran over Jack's body, and then she aimed it at Nico. At the critical moment, Jedel ran over and pushed her out of the way. In order to deliver the death blow to Nico, Nisa and Hangu teamed up to kidnap Nico's father. They held him and Jedel's grandmother captive in an abandoned chemical plant. The assistant easily attracted the attention of the enemy with a diversionary tactic. Nico took the opportunity to untie his father. The assistant is a trained professional, but he was still not as strong as Hangu. In no time at all, he was hung by his neck by Hangu. At the critical moment, police officer Peter arrived. Hangu was shot in the shoulder and escaped. On the other hand, Nico and Nisa are also in a fierce battle. Especially in such a dangerous place as a chemical plant, there is a risk of disfigurement if not careful. At the critical moment, Nico pulled out a silver needle from his waist and inserted it into Nisa's knee. In order to escape, Hangu took Nico's father as a hostage, but he accidentally touched the switch button of the machine. A big iron hook fell from the sky and hit Hangu's body. Nisa's fate was even worse. She accidentally fell into the chemical water and had a horrible time. In the end, the bad guys got what they deserved, and Nico, the mastermind behind it all, was sentenced to 10 years in prison for attempted murder. She was released early because of her good behavior in prison. She ended up living happily ever after with the one she loved.